So this video is about the design and the layout of a single block and what options you should use and what you shouldn't use and all that kind of thing. Um, so the first thing I'll do is create a block. So the first thing I'd be doing is finding out, will they be needing to see the data as they are adding it? So for example, if this is in a workstation and they're tracking serial numbers, then the answer is probably likely yes. So let's just say serial number. And that's originally what Blocworx was designed for, that as they're adding data, they can see what's going on the right hand side. And that's the very original core design that Blocworx started with. However, that's only one use case. So in this example, it's a block where, you know, it's very much a live system where people are tracking stuff all day. But then there could be a case that it's a form that someone is filling out and they don't really need to see that, and it's actually more like a regular form you see online. And in that case, you make it full width and you might have your different fields across it, something like that. And that's the case of when you might use the full width. So basically, if they don't need to be seeing the data, generally I'd be making it full width. So the next thing to point out is, like, if they don't need to be seeing the data, then you can always hide it completely. So we could have our data display settings and we'll say show nothing. Handy for the admin, like I showed you in previous videos. We'll allow the admin to see the data, but the normal user can't. And then generally I would recommend, if that's the case and it's just a normal form they're filling out, they don't see any data, they just press submit, then I would be recommending to have a pop-up. So success pop-up, and then thanks for filling out this form. So I just said test. Thanks for filling out this form. Now in this case, I'm an admin, so I can see the data. So we'll just keep working. We'll do a few more tidying up before we log in as a regular user. I'll just actually give the operator role so that I can log in. So the next bit of tidying up I would be saying is the hiding. So these are on by default. We may consider in the future turning these off. I've mentioned that in older videos, but I would nearly unless you know that data importing is going to be happening, I would turn this off. The counts area, to be honest, most times I would turn off. Calendar, I would turn off. And then you've all the smaller ones here, like hide the per page, hide oldest and newest. These might be used quite often, but again, let's just turn them off for a second just to see. And hide advanced reports. And what I'm getting at here is I'm going to now log in as a user that has an operator role. So that's employee account. And we go straight to the block. It might be possible that that role has the ability to see data based on the previous video, so I'll just check that out. I'll just pause the video and check that out. Okay, so I paused the video and logged back out, and I did that. Turned out the employee did have the ability to see that data. So now we can see what it looks like from a point of view of being much neater and a regular user filling out a form. They press submit and it just says thank you for filling out the form and nothing else. That's always the ideal situation. So now that's the instructions around cleaning up and hiding everything. Next we'll have a look at the actual fields. So we go back to that block. So one rule of thumb that I like to kind of say is, yes, we do have the ability to split up fields down to 1/12 of the width of the screen, but that should only be if it's really, really necessary. Because as you can imagine, things do start to get a little ugly and hard to use for a customer. This is actually not even a good example because the name of these fields, I'll just give it a bigger name. Things start to get a bit messy, and let's just say we're doing a plain data field here. Some value, so on and so forth. Like when I go back to the front end, it just starts to get too busy, too messy. So overall, my recommendation is to have, where feasible, generally 4 fields maximum width, and ideally 3. So I have, in this case, we'll make this the third size, so they're all a third size. And the reason is because this is also looks better on a variety of different screens. So even if as the screen gets slightly smaller, it still looks decent. So what I'll do now is I'll just show you what I mean. So we're on mobile, and now we're on a tablet view. Even 3 fields still looks pretty nice. Whereas if we had 5 fields going across, things start to get complicated looking. And it goes without saying, these 1/12 ones just look terrible at this stage. It's worth noting that when you get to mobile, everything becomes full width. We are looking at maybe allowing for 50/50 width on the mobile screen, but we don't have that at the moment. So as a rule of thumb, we generally go for 3 wide, and that's 4 wide if necessary. But it is up to you. Again, this is subjective. These are just guidelines, and it makes things easier for the customer to see. It makes it easier to kind of manage visually, and it actually makes it easier to maintain as well. So you're probably wondering, why do we have like the 12 width or other sizes like that? Well, the truth is, it is handy sometimes, because sometimes you might be building some complex, maybe tests or something, maybe a field like this 1A. So it really depends on the use case for the customer. They might have this kind of situation where they have a few different things going on, and for whatever reason they need to split it up, like something like that. But for regular forms that people are used to using, overall, try and keep it as simple, clean, and as spacious as you can as well, because things stop handling well as soon as we go down to different sizes in terms of mobile and well, more so smaller tablets or smaller screens and tablets. The next advice about fields is plain data and hiding fields. So you might have saw in previous videos, sometimes you're going to have to create fields that are purely functional. Now we're trying to reduce that. Um, I'll give you an example of a functional field. Let's say VAT rate, and it's 1.23, and let's say we have a math field, which is, the amount multiplied by the VAT. Well, amount plus VAT. So we'll just say it's 1A multiplied by VAT rate. So when I go to 1A and we're getting our VAT rate, in this case, I'd be recommending hide this field. So basically, to keep it simple, just hide anything that's not being used and that's not needed to be seen by the customer. Now you might say, well, actually, they do need to see the VAT rate. That's fine too. Then leave it. But generally, if you're using functional fields and you don't think the customer might need them, you can just hide them. And as I showed previously, you just simply do that by doing this. So now the person's working away and we have our 56, then we have our amount plus VAT. That also goes for maths fields. So you might have a series of maths fields that are all functional and you're looking for one final output. Again, I'd recommend just hiding them. It's as simple as that. So the next piece of advice is related to the display of the data or display of the form. So it's just to keep in mind when you're designing a block that sometimes it's more about the data and not quite the form. Just at times you might only be adding the form, you know, you might only be adding a new value from time to time. So what we'll do here is we're going to hide the form when we load the page. So first I'll do close the form after submitting, and we'll do hide the form on page load. Because this might be more like people might be working off the list more likely than they would be working off the form. It might be only from time to time they're actually adding something new. So this instruction isn't so much of that feature because I've already showed you that feature. It's more to keep this in mind when you're designing a block. Should it be a data first one or a form first one or a form only one or even a data only one? Because remember we have cross blocks, so we might have other blocks feeding this, and that there might be a case that well actually we never edit anything. So in this case you'd hide everything and just say, well, we're only going to show. So someone just logs in here and all they see is this, and you could even hide these buttons and everything. And maybe this updates every day, every time they reload it, because people are working on different parts and cross blocks. That's the main instructions around working on a block directly. Um, Another common trick we do is linking from the home page. So you'll quite often come across a situation where you're after creating a module, you're after creating a bunch of blocks, but really you don't want the user to have to negotiate their way through modules from the home page. Like just say I'm adding a new record in company details. And I suppose the point I'm getting in is, sometimes you can just link the block directly to the home page, and it's something that we encourage because you can still apply the role. Again, though, it's down to the use case. So, for instance, we might say add new URL link, add company details, and you might add a role or whatever. And then what you do is you might hide the actual module. So now we're on the home page and we can see add company details. You can go straight there and you can see straight away there's your company field. And we'd say, well, we want to get rid of this module. So what we do is a bit of a trick. Go to admin and development, manage pages, and let's just say like hidden modules. And that's it really. There's no description or anything. Hidden module. We'll just give this a section, one section, because so edit here, edit page. It needs one section. So now let's go to the video 2. Let's say we want to get rid of this. And we're going to edit this module, edit module details. Sorry, not edit module location page. And let's say, well, hidden modules, hidden module section. So then the idea of this is now you're left with just the nice links to what people may want, you know, from the home page. Sorry, that's not on the home page there. I'm in the, now we're in the home page. And now we have blocks. This is a bad example. I have so much stuff going on here that you know, you can't really get a feel for what I'm talking about. So what I'll just quickly do is create a pretend homepage. Example homepage. Because you have to keep in mind that, you know, they might have arrived onto this on their mobile phone. So let's say, you know, my actions or whatever. And then add the new URL link. I'll just do it one more time what I did on the homepage. No, wrong one. So let's pretend this is the homepage and they've just arrived along. And now you could have a very clean and also mobile friendly set of links. And don't forget, you can actually apply the role to these as well. So like when you edit this link, you can do it while you're creating or editing. You can add roles. And then keeping in mind mobile friendly too. So company might log in and then the first thing they see is this. So that means you could have loads of modules doing lots of different things, but you might just have links going straight from the home page. So overall, my point is about, you know, keeping things tidy and clean for the user and not complicating things and learning to kind of move your modules into pages. Don't forget as well, you can add it to the side menu. So whenever you're editing a page, you can add it to the sidebar. But again, only do that if you're thinking that it's going to be needed there and it's going to be used quite often. So that's it for this video, and that's just some of the guidelines. We'll hopefully be coming up with more guidelines in future modules. But for this round of it, that's everything. Thank you. Goodbye.